welcome to the pod anyway, Blair.
Good to be here.
I was going to say, how does it feel to sit on the other side of getting questions?
Yeah, it's definitely different. I have a lot of people ask me all the time, like, if I do the same thing or like what my story is a little bit with it.
Yeah.
And it's it definitely catches a bit off guard a bit. You're used to giving the questions out and then they get fired back at you. You get put on the spot and be like, whoa. But
How does that feel because you're obviously, when you ask people these pretty like intense or deep questions, and do they fire them back at you often, and then you've kind of like makes you think of like...
yeah, there's one that sticks out where a lady came down and she didn't have any interest in talking really. She just sat down and said, like, I want to know your story and why you're doing this. Like, I'm intrigued by what you're doing and I admire it a lot. And she was just like, but, you know, like, why do you do it? What's, you know, you don't really, it's not really something you see people doing very often, just sit down the beach trying to talk to people and that kind of stuff. So, yeah. And
is she the one that made you sit on the other side?
Yeah, because I originally tried to get her to sit down. She's like, no, I want to. And then she's like, oh. And then she's like, and I was like, oh, all right, you can interview me then. And I just accepted my fate and sat down. But it was good. It was kind of at the time where I was about to start posting on the page, and I feel as though if you're asking other people to be vulnerable in a situation, you've also got to show that you can be as well. So it came at a good time, and I'm a big believer a lot of these things come at good times when you need them. And so I got to sit down and she fired some questions and kind of asked about my reasons behind why I did it and what filled up my cup and all that kind of stuff. And then she made me realise a lot of things as well, through the way that she saw the world and that kind of stuff, because I suppose that's why I called it Through Strangers' Eyes. We all get these perspectives on life and see things differently, and we all have these experiences that, you know, some relate, some don't. And it was beautiful to see her perception of life versus the way I thought. And she was a lot older, but she's had more experiences and had a lot more time to consider all these things. And with me, I'm still, you know, pretty young, going on 24, so I'm still learning these things and mapping out life, I guess, and what things mean to me.
Why did you start it? Like, what was the driving point to go, hey, I'm just going to go and chat with people and share their stories? Yeah,
I think the big one is I saw this video on, must have been like, I didn't have TikTok at the time, but it must have been like Instagram, and it was a guy sitting down with a sign just saying, like, if you're having a bad day, come sit down and put on these headphones, and he'd like sing this song and play this DJ deck thing. And I knew straight away that it was scripted and fake. Like, the whole reaction, you could see it wasn't quite authentic. But so the idea was right, but probably for the wrong reasons. Like, using that situation to spread kindness, positivity, whatever it is, to ultimately get likes and that kind of stuff, which is, I feel like, a way that social media's gone in where it is these days. Is it's a lot for the right reasons, but for the wrong outcome kind of thing. And to me, I thought, you know, it's pretty authentic and raw if you can go and sit down and just see if people come to you, because I always think back to that. You know, those sales pitches you get in, like, you might be like a shopping mall or something like that, and they're trying to sell you something, and you're like, they're trying to grab you and you're trying to walk away and just do your thing. And it's kind of like pulling someone away from what they're doing. But I was like, oh, if I go sit down there, like, I had to spend like maybe $400 or $500 on gear to get set up, and I just use my phone. I keep it really simple. And it was like, you know, it's going to cost me nothing but my time, essentially. And I get to watch the sunset, sit down the beach. It's beautiful. It was summer at the time, or end of summer when I was doing it. And I was like, I'd just be curious to see what would happen. But the funny story behind that is, the first time I went down there, I didn't get out of my car. And it's this whole thing around, you know, that fear of judgment. And I sat in my car looking at, you know, I'd already scoped out where I wanted to do it, and I was like, that's a perfect spot. And I sat there and in my car and was like, can't do it. I was like, all these people walking back, like, it's high foot traffic, and that was the whole point, to see, you know, sit where lots of people go past and see if anyone can come over. But the whole concept to me was, you know, look at these people, like, they're going to think I'm an idiot for sitting there filming myself, talking to myself at a park bench and that kind of stuff. And that fear of judgment that you have all your life when you grow up as a kid and you don't really have that identity and know things fully is, I literally drove home, and then I got home and instantly regretted it. And I was like, you know, that's not ideal. And then the next day I went back and same thing. And this time I got out of the car, and within 2 minutes of me setting up, I just sat down. I had granddaughter and the grandpa come and sit down and want to talk. And the second they did that, it was just this instant relief of like, what was the big deal? Like, the whole fear of judgment just lifted. And then ultimately that night I had, I think, 7 people come and sit down, which is the most I've ever had come and sit down in one night. And I think in my own head, that was the universe's way of saying, you know, you're on the right path. You're doing the right thing. This is what you should be doing. And you made the right decision to get out of that car and push through that fear of judgment and that, you know, that ongoing fear there. So I'm very thankful for that night. And then after that night, it was very easy to go sit down there. And obviously you learn, you get better the more you do it. That's with anything. But now it's a beautiful experience for me. And I honestly cannot explain how good it feels to have a complete stranger just either it's a little bit shallow or go, like, I've had some incredible stories on there that you just changes your whole perception of life and what's important, and it's just incredible.
Yeah, how open people can be to share what they've gone through with a stranger on the like side of the street kind of thing.
I think the powerful thing there is like there's no judgment from a stranger. Like I don't sit down there and ask for someone's context and their life history, like if they're a good or bad person, what experience it's like. It's just sit down if you've got time to chat. You know, a few prompt questions here and there and to get them going and that kind of stuff, but it's just more holding that space for them to be authentic and say what they need to say. And there's no time limit on it. It's not, oh, you know, you've got 5 minutes to say your spiel. It's like a lot of the time, I suppose the biggest skill that I've had developed from it is a lot of people, when they're finished talking, they're not actually finished talking. They'll take a deep breath and then they're thinking and then their subconscious is kicking into the stuff that they actually want to say, the deeper stuff. So I kind of just sit there and I've had 30-second, 45-second pauses where people have said nothing. And most people would jump in and say something or give advice. And then it's just, I let it go and you just hear these amazing stories where they go real deep into more details and the stuff that's really burdening them, that's weighing them down. And it's a beautiful thing. I remember back to Mel's story. She walked past and she was real skeptic and she was just like, oh, you know, like how much time do you need? What are you doing it for? All this kind of stuff. And her story is incredible. Her brother committed suicide. They lost a father in an accident when they were younger, and he carried all this burden and ultimately committed suicide. And she had all this weight from that, and you could feel that energy as she was skeptic and she was asking. And then she sat down and she's all shaky, and it's a real in-depth chat, and it was beautiful. But I gave her a hug at the end of it, and you could just feel the weight lifted off her shoulder, and just the energy, the positive that was coming out of her was just incredible. And it's just, yeah, like I said, it's something I can't explain until you just sit down and a stranger just opens up. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah, like you said, you could feel it. You could feel the change. I think, was she the one that I listened to one and at the start of it, she says it's not going to go viral, is it?
Yeah.
And I remember you said, I hope not. And I was just like...
Yeah, like that was literally my first night, and I like, you know, just got started with the page, only had a couple hundred followers, whatnot, like didn't know what direction it was going to go in, and then I didn't know really what to tell her. I was just like, oh, I hope not, and then who knows what's going to happen, like, and then the reception to it's been great.
Where it's gone. A thing you said back at the start there, where you were talking about you went to the spot you wanted to go to, and you just sat in your car, and it's funny you say that because I remember when I first moved up here, I obviously had my podcast and I wanted to do more stuff like that, like just interview random people. And I was thinking about like, I'll just go to Burleigh Hill and just chat with people with like a microphone. And it came back to like that judgment piece that you have in your head that you just loop around where you're like, people are going to think I look stupid. Who's going to want to talk to me? And all this judgment flows in. And I just like got in my own head and I just never even tried to do it because I was like, oh, I'll look stupid. And then I was talking to my friend about it, and then he actually went and did the thing. And then I was like, kind of like, oh, I don't want to do the thing now. It's kind of been done, even though like everything's been done a million times. And then you convince yourself of that in your head. And then there's another reason why, oh, I can't do it now because someone else did it. And you're like, these things that go around in your head that are actually so pointless and so meaningless until you actually go and do it and go, oh, that's fine. And it's like, you can do what someone else is doing. You just put your own flavor or own taste on it or change it how you want. And then it can be your thing. But it's like being authentically you and doing the thing that someone else is doing is still your thing. And like you said, you saw it from a guy doing the DJ set. And I saw a guy, and I think he would get people to write a note and then he would go read it back out later. It's like, what's your greatest loss, or what's your deepest like love that you've lost, or something like that. And he'd just get people to put in like a little thing, and then he would read it and then put like some video up with him reading the note, and he's like got millions of followers, and he does this all around the world, and it's like it's such a easy and quick positive way to just share, I guess, positivity in that way. And you, like you said, you connect with people on such a deep level so quickly, and I think people are so drawn to that because it's so relatable. Like, I think a lot of the time when sometimes you get people that are very famous or high in social media or whatever it may be. And I was thinking about this the other day. There's such a big disconnect. So just say you talk to a billionaire or millionaire or an actor or someone like that. The disconnect from a normal person watching that is so great that it's almost they can't relate to what they're saying, even though it is something that they could do. It's like the disconnect where you talk to a normal person, it kind of like you can relate directly to that. And even the other day, like I was walking past, Quest Coffee on James Street. There's like a homeless guy that has been out the front a lot, and I always walk past him. I was like, "Hey, do you want a muffin or something?" And I ended up giving him a muffin. I was like, "Can I chat with you for a little bit and just ask you like how you got here?" And he had this like really sad story about how he lost his daughter, and then he got addicted to drugs, and he's lost like a heap of family members, and how that spiraled him out. And it just actually taking the time to talk to someone like that, and then see how relatable that could be in your life. Like it's like 2 or 3 wrong turns, and then you can get somewhere like that. But I guess what I was trying to get with all this, it's like what's probably the most relatable thing you've kind of found with talking to people that like everyone has in common when you're doing these chats, when people sit down and kind of open up?
I think it's that, we all internalize our own issues, and we think we don't want to be a burden on other people. So they find it so easy to talk to a stranger because they're not burdening a friend with an issue or that kind of stuff. So they're not talking to a friend and thinking they're a burden to them, or a family member or whatever, that kind of thing. So the relatability there is that the fact that I'm a stranger and they come and sit down, and they essentially need that space because they're just kind of lost and they don't know who to speak to, and they don't want to be a burden, but we internalize things. So just having that perspective that I guess everyone goes through these things, and we internalize them, but we think that we're so different from everyone else. But in the end, we're all human and we all go through the same things, whether it's depression, anxiety, grief, loss. We all go through the same things, and finding that people just want an outlet to be heard and just understood. And I go back to what you said there with the homeless man, is I literally had last night went down there and spoke to a guy named Josh, and he was homeless when he was 16 and had his daughter on the streets and like pregnant. It was crazy. But it's like, what is it, like 5 to 7 seconds that it takes us to judge someone or like put a label on someone. And I found the biggest thing is, unless, we're all a byproduct of our environment, whether it's, an unstable household or whatever it is growing up, or whatever these interactions that we have that shape who we are as we're growing up. And unless you can take, 10, like you said, you sat down and had a chat with him, like that 10 minutes that you need to understand someone, why they are the way they are, is such a powerful thing, because you realise so much more to what's going on in the situation. Like, you can look at a homeless person and be like, oh, they're a drug addict. And it's that stereotypical stigma that we put on it, or, that outlook that we just go, oh, they're addicted to drugs, so I don't want to help them because, they might react a different way and whatnot. And talking to Josh last night, it was like, he didn't want to be homeless. Like, it wasn't by choice. Like, he got kicked out of home because it was an unstable environment. There was a lot of drugs and abuse, and it wasn't a good environment. And then he ended up in halfway houses and all these things. And it's just like, it's not by choice. But I just think, if, like you said, everyday people can't relate to someone that's, successful and famous, and, you've got this hyper 1% of the population, which a lot of these creators and stuff are going and showing videos, and they're going, hey, like, what's your advice? And no one can relate to that, because 99% of the population will never have that, or never live that life. So I'm going way off track here. I'm answering 4 different questions.
I went for like a long-winded.
Yeah, there's different bits, but I think that's why the channel's gone so well, is because it's just everyday people that no one knows anything about. That we've all got these same struggles as humans, and we all go through the same things, but we internalize things. And I found the power of, if you can hit someone with a story that's relatable, why they're isolated in that moment over that issue on their phone. We still scroll, we doom scroll. That's how we internalize things. We sit in our phone and we hide away from the world, and we look at things, and we be by ourselves. But it only takes one of those videos that's someone that they don't even know, some random just on the beach walking past, that sits down and goes, fuck, you know, I just had the worst breakup. Like, this is how I'm feeling. And that's all I'm asking for is how they're feeling. Like, it's not me sitting there giving them advice. It's going, you know, what are you going through? How are you feeling? Like, what's your reaction to that? And then someone goes, oh, fuck, that's exactly how I feel. Like, and then they go, oh, but this person's still going. They're outside. They're going for a walk. They're still, you know, doing life. I can do it too. And it's just like, you know, it gives that little bit of hope. And I still can't even process some of the messages that I get on the page where it's people saying, you know, these videos have saved my life, or, you know, these videos came at the exact time that I need them, or I'm going through the exact same thing. Like, thank you so much. It's like, I've got thousands of DMs there that like I get back to and I see, and I'm just like, I can't even comprehend how, to me, such a simple thing of just allowing my time can mean so much to so many people. Like, it's just, I can't comprehend it.
Yeah, the flow and effect of how many people that actually touches. And like you said before, it's this whole thing where it's teaching you how to listen to someone properly. Like, I heard this thing and I love it, but it's, are you listening or just waiting to speak? And so many of us are just waiting to speak. They're like waiting for that point where I can get my point across. I can give you my opinion. I can tell you what I think you should do. And a lot of people just want to be heard. They just want to tell you something. And most of the time, them telling you what they need to tell you will help them process the things they need to go through, and then they'll heal themselves. Like, we can really only ever just heal ourselves. No one will heal us for us. They might give you the tools or point you in the right direction to heal yourself, but you have to do that healing. And a lot of the time, it's like, you know, when you can be self-aware, but there's also times when you actually have no idea why you're the way you are, or why you're upset, or why you're angry at the world, and you need to dive back through your trauma or your life and actually pinpoint the moment when you're like, oh, I'm this way because of that, or because of this, or whatever it may be. And I think having someone there when you can actually talk to, it's like, I always tell people, if you can write it down as well, if you journal and write down how you're feeling, or talk to someone that isn't going to have a bias towards what you're doing, like, man, that's going to be so beneficial for you actually understanding why you feel the way you feel. Because do you see this when you see someone that's angry or pissed off or something like that? And you're kind of like, why are you actually so angry? And they don't know. Like, they'll say, oh, it's because of like the traffic or there's something like minor, but it's like, no, like, that's not why you're this mad. If you notice that when you see people react to things, but they don't actually know why they are feeling the way they're feeling.
Yeah, it's especially that on that subconscious level and that deeper level it goes back to these things that I guess, on that note, I think it's like when you push things deeper and deeper that you don't want to deal with because they're hard to face, the more we put them down, the harder they are to face, obviously. So when people, they lash out, it's generally like, it's just like that good old saying, when someone lashes out at you for no reason, or it's got nothing to do with you. Most of the time, it's them going through their own shit and them dealing with the stuff that they don't want to deal with. And I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but have you heard there's like a mental health saying, and it's about life as well, the bison and the cow?
Yeah, runs into it.
Yeah. So it's essentially, you know, a bison and a cow in a paddock, and there's a massive storm coming. And they both have two different reactions. The cow runs away from the storm, and no matter how far it runs, it can never outrun the storm. It gets weighed down, it gets heavier, its feet get sore, and eventually it gets tired and it has to stop and give up. And no matter how far it got, that storm's still coming and it's still going to hit them, and they've got to go through that stuff. Whereas the bison goes, shit, this is going to be tough, and it's going to be hard, but I'm going to run head first into it. And they face all those demons, all that hurt, all that guilt, everything that they've been through that's tough to face. They hit it head on, and then they get through the other side, and the sun's shining, the rainbow's out, the grass is green, and they've dealt with it in a way that has lifted their spirits, and they've got through it, and it's great. And whereas the cow tried to outrun it, to put it away and push those emotions deeper and deeper, and then eventually still had to face it. And that's what I see, and what I think people do is, it's just like these things, the longer we put them off, the harder they get to do, and then we end up, you know, pushing our anger into different directions onto other people and other things we do when it's got, like you said, nothing to do with that person or that situation. It's just we push it so deep down that we don't know how to deal with it anymore. And then, yeah, I guess essentially talking about it, where, like you said, just talking about it heals it, because it's the shit that you don't want to tell other people, that you're telling a stranger, that's really hard to deal with, and you know they're not going to judge you because they don't know your situation. And then you get it all out and you just go, fuck, I needed that.
That's more or less telling yourself, though. you say telling a stranger, but how often do you say something in your brain all the time and it's not until you say it out loud that you really hear it? You go, oh shit, that is exactly what we know, everyone knows deep down what they should do, but until they actually verbalize it and say it to someone else, they go, oh shit, it's easy to hide in your own brain. It's harder to hide when you start to speak it.
Yeah, which I think is a cool little benefit to what I do too, is like, it's kind of such a, it's not planned obviously, so it's like so natural, and then it's like you're just going for a walk or a run. It's not, you don't go down there thinking, oh, I'm going to sit down with a stranger and talk. Like, it's just like the most random thing you'll ever see. And you get down there and you're not forced into it because you want to sit down there. And I feel as though a lot of people subconsciously know that they need it. So they're like, a lot of people will ride or run past and they go, oh, I saw your sign, and like, oh, I want it. But then I turn around and I came back, and it's like on the way back I wanted to do it. And it's just this benefit of putting yourself in that situation where I've become pretty good at being able to just ask the right questions to lead them on a path without being too intrusive, and then they, subconsciously in themselves, they let it out and they get all the shit that they need to say out. And then, like I said, I try not to say much or add advice or anything. It's not about me. It's not about saying, oh, this is what you need to do or this is how you should feel. This is like, you just tell your experience, your feelings, what you need to say, and you'll know what you need to say. And I'm just here to listen.
Yeah, it's creating that space for them to do it. It's so often that I think people are so wary to share because they don't want that. They don't, like we said before, you don't need someone to give you advice. You don't need someone to tell you what to do. It's like, I know what I need to do. I just need to get it out so I can actually hear myself say it. And I think that's why you see in relationships a lot of the time where people, they tighten up and they don't share with their partner because they know their partner will try and fix them. It's like, there's nothing that needs to be fixed. I just need to tell you what I need to tell you. I was going to ask you, what's something that you were hiding from, or what's something that you subconsciously tucked away that you probably needed to have come up and that you could see?
Well, it's partly why I started doing it as well, as I've got this extreme anxiety and fear of death and the concept of dying. And ultimately what fills up my cup and helps me hide away that darkness or deal with it a bit better is, positively impacting other people and get myself out of my comfort zone and doing these things that, fill up my cup and make me happy. And yeah, so essentially I've got this massive fear and anxiety of when the lights are off, it's dark, it's quiet, and I get into the thought process of, death and dying. It's like this black hole in my brain, essentially, and I can't accept that everything just ends, and I get upset, I cry myself to sleep, I get angry, punch the pillows, and it's just this absolute denial and just raging fear, and just, I don't even know how to explain it. It's one of the most horrible things, but it's a little thing, but to me it's like the hardest thing I deal with internally. And like I said, that first night, or one of those first nights I did it, when the lady came and spoke to me and reversed on me, that's where I got vulnerable and said, this is what I deal with and this is kind of why I'm doing this, and it fills up my cup. And that was the hardest thing that it was the hardest thing for me to share to other people, because it's something that I battle away in the darkness of the night and when it's quiet and it's just me, and I've had to do a lot of work with it, and it's just this thing that I really struggle with. And the beauty of that is I got a bit of my own medicine where as soon as I shared that and was vulnerable, I got probably 50, 60 DMs of people saying, holy shit, like I go through the same thing. I didn't know anyone went through that as well. And that was my mindset as well. I was like, this is such a bizarre thing to struggle with. And I internalized it and dealt with it myself. Yet all these other people found relatability in it and thanked me for sharing that because they felt alone in the same thing. So I think that's something that I struggled to talk about, needed to talk about with, and did, that ultimately helped me. I've got all these people send me how they deal with it, which is the beautiful thing. Like, they're like, oh, I go through the same thing, shit, like, ask me how I deal with it and what I use to get through it, and, numb the emotion around it. And then, other people, give me advice on how they live it or their perspective and that kind of stuff. And it's, full circle moment really with that kind of thing.
Do you know where it stems from? Was there a point, or has it just always been something you've dealt with?
It's a hard one. I still don't fully understand it. I don't know if I ever will. I've seen a few like natural health people and that kind of stuff, and essentially they reckon, you know, trauma from previous lives and, you know, my family's lives and passed down through the generations, and then subconsciously not wanting to live was stuff that came up. But for me, I feel like I've got such a love and joy for life that just the thought of it all, you know, ending is something that's pretty hard to accept. And I suppose I went to a Catholic school, but probably grew up an atheist. Probably believed more in the science side of things. And to me, everything just ended. It was just a black hole. It was just, you die and that's it. And it's interesting because no matter where you look, there's so many different takes and perspectives on life after death, whether it's Christianity, you know, Jesus Christ and going to heaven.
You know what they all have in common though?
What's that?
We have no idea.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing.
All a guess.
Everyone's got their own take on it. And I think my way that now that I view it is, it's just like, to me, all these cultures have a symbol of God, a symbol of a high belief and that kind of stuff. And the lesson I take out of it is having something that you're believing in that way, that I see the comfort of believing in going to heaven and reincarnation and all these different things that these cultures have. Is that belief leaves you a little less alone and a little less afraid, and that's powerful, and I understand why people use that. So it's a great thing. So for me, it's my own battle with dealing with that and trying to find something to believe in my own head after life. But it's just not the way, since I've grown up, my brain's, you know, thought and process things. So it's something that I still battle with, but I think that's the beauty of Through Strangers' Eyes, and what I'm doing is you get everyone else's perspective and their look on things and their views, and the more perspectives you've got, the more knowledge and understanding of other people's situations and the way they view life is, the more lessons you can take and put into your own life and use that going forward the best you can.
Yeah, no, I see that, but I think you just need to look at it as you don't know what's there, and it's like if I said what's in that box, and you would go, I don't know. It's like, well, are you scared of it? And you're like, well, I don't know what's in there, so why would I be scared of it? It's like on the other side of death. It's like you don't know what's there, so it's like you're just carrying this fear and anxiety through your body, and then you get there and you're just like, oh, this is fine. It comes back to the fear of getting out of your car. It's like all this fear that can be surrounded about anything you do or could come. Until you do it, why are you nervous about the thing? And I understand, like, I feel that as well with heaps of different things I do, but it's almost, I look at it as a fear that you'll carry that then as soon as you do it, it'll be released. But you can release that at any point if you really want. And I said before, like, do you do much breath work? Because we did a breath work session before we did this. I would say the best thing for me that helped me become more accepting of death was doing like really long, deep breath work sessions. And I feel like it shuts off your body, puts you in your mind. And I've had points when I've done it where I've completely accepted the idea of death. Like I did once, and I've talked about it before, people are probably sick of me talking about it, but it was one of the ones I'm just going to see how deep I can do with this. And I think I did like 6 or 7 rounds of this like Wim Hof breathing. And on the last few, I was just like, the very last one, I was like, I'm just going to see how long I can hold my breath for. And I'm not sure how long it was, but I woke up to people over the top of me being like, Dean, are you okay? But in that moment, I completely accepted the idea. Like if I was to die in this moment, this is when I should die. And I just shut off to any, like all fear left my body, all anxiety left my body, everything just left. And I was so extremely happy and content with everything in my life. And when I came back, it's like everything that I was worried about or nervous about or angry about left my body. And I came back and I felt like I was me again. And I was like, holy shit, like that was very, very much needed. And I think if you could go into a state of that, I feel like it's the best thing I've ever done to help me accept the idea of death more, because I feel like in a way you are shutting off oxygen to your body and your body's kind of shutting off in your mind. And then you kind of understand the idea, like how do you kill consciousness? Like I understand how your body could die, but I don't understand how consciousness can die. It's like I think it just gets transformed and put into something else, and like the life cycle just goes around in a circle, and you kind of go into everything that's here and ever been, and then go into something else. And I feel like if I'm like, if we don't know what happens, I'd like to think about it like that. Like, I'd like to think about it in a positive way then, because I used to think that it's just black, done, it's over. But I'm like, fuck that. If you can think about it in a better way, why not? And if it helps you get through it and understand it, it's like the idea is like when you're gone, it's like probably going to be I always think it's going to be the most euphoric, happy, blissful thing you'll ever experience. And then you feel incredible. And there won't be any pain, any stress, any anger, nothing. It'll all be gone and you can just actually be. So I think if you can somehow get your mind to see it like that, and I guess the best thing I've done to help me get to that point is breath work and accepting death. Once you do that, you're just like, there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, I think it's that beautiful thing too of, worry about what you can control and don't worry about what you can't control. And it's so simple and cliche, but it is what it is. Like the more time I spent caught up and thinking about it, the worse it got, the angrier it get. And what's that other quote that goes, the more you think about it, the bigger it gets.
Yeah.
And I struggle with the more I think about it, I just get in this, this just cycle of just constantly thinking about it. But I suppose now, the less I think about it, the less I put time into it. And I can worry about, all right, I could die tomorrow. I can't change that fact. Like, that's going to happen whenever I die. But what I can control is how I live my life, the impact I have on others and the things that I do. So if I put, 99% of my energy into that and only 1% of the energy takes that occasionally on a night where I have a weak, moment, like that's going to happen. There's going to be times where I fall into those traps and I struggle. But if I can put, 99.9% of my energy into what I can control and these moments in life that I can capture, then that's going to fill up my cup and that's what's going to make life worth living and enjoyable. And I think that's a beautiful thing is it's just like the more perspectives I get and the more people's stories I hear is the more value I can take out of them. And it's a beautiful thing is that even when starting this, now it's become this kind of, mental health beacon for people and this shining light and this like kind of void where everyday people have missed this relatability in people's vulnerability. But the underlying thing is it gives me so much. Like it answers all these questions that I don't have the answers to through other people's experiences, and your experience is yours with your breath work, and that's something that now I can take that you've told me and go, shit, Dean did that, that's amazing. Like, now I'm going to try it and see my experience. And then I'll sit down at the beach and talk to someone else and they go, this is my experience, but this is what I did. And it's just about this, that circle of life and that full circle of just, those moments and the interactions that we have with others are the most beautiful things and the most powerful things, experiences we'll ever have in life. So the more that we can share and understand and learn, the better we are going to be as humans.
Yeah, it's like you do something for you, but then the byproduct of that is that everyone else gets helped out as well. And you were talking before about then when you make something bigger in your head. I was listening to this podcast and it's talking about, it's called rumination. It's when you have a negative thought and then you just dwell on the negative thought and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I guess coming back to you sharing these stories or going to a psychologist or something like that, I guess that's how you stop rumination and you actually get your ideas out there. And it's kind of like you see a balloon that's like going to burst and then it takes one negative thing to just pop it. But if you can like slowly release that out of like talking to others or sharing what you need to share or listening to something else, then it's like, oh, it takes the pressure off, takes the stress off, and they can actually live a very normal, happy life.
Yeah, it's people just get lost and don't know how to, release it slowly, and that's the kind of thing we get. So much pressure on society these days, and everyone's got so much going on. Inflation, rent prices go up. People, everyday people really struggle, and that's the thing that I say on these things is just like. But if you can appreciate the small things and learn how to just talk and communicate and have interactions with others, it releases a lot of that stress and a lot of that pressure that you're talking about. So it's just these little moments that can bring the big things down that we're struggling with, I guess, if that probably doesn't make any sense. But
no, I get what you're saying. It's just, I think you understand when you've been affected in a positive way by someone saying something small and not understanding the weight that carries with it. Like I've talked to people in this podcast and they've said stuff or shared stuff. Like you say, people come up to me and be like, you saved my life, or you pulled me back from the edge, or you did this, or you inspired me to do that. And it's like in my head, I was like, obviously I'm trying to share a good message. Like I feel like you are as well, but you don't actually feel the impact of that. You say you get DMs and all that, and it feels good, but it doesn't feel as real. But if you have someone come up to you in person and go, hey, like you pulled me back from the edge, or you helped me with this, or I had me and my daughter haven't talked in a year, but you made me go and chat with her because of something you said or someone you talked to, and you're going like, okay, that's making a positive difference in some way. And it's not big, that's not why you do it, but it's like the byproduct of doing something good is like other people get something good out of it as well.
Yeah, I just think the importance of human interaction just outweighs everything else. Like, we're the most, it's a cliche as well, but we're the most connected we've ever been, but the most disconnected. Like, we're kind of numb to the feeling and the emotion of devices and phones. Like, it's just, you see something and you just, you're numb to the fact of what it actually means. There's no feeling that comes along with it anymore. Like, you don't get that hit of serotonin or whatever it is that comes along with it in person, but you've had these human interactions and just face to face. And that's what I mean. Like, when I talk to these people and they share stuff that's vulnerable or just have these interactions, like, I go from having like a 6 out of 10 mood to a 10 out of 10 mood, and I just can't explain the feeling that just rushes through your body. It's just like, I just don't have the words. Like, that just moved me, shifted me, my energy's so different, like, just because, that human interaction and that basic necessity that we need with it, but we're so disconnected from these days because we go through our 9-to-5 jobs or whatever we do, and then we come home and we jump on our phones and we're disconnected from everything else. But if you came home and spent a little bit more time with your partner or your friends or your roommates before you got on your devices and stuff, it does the opposite of what you think. Like, it just lifts your mood so much.
How do you feel mentally for you? Because obviously you're posting all this stuff on social media, but like you said, there's a bit of a message of it is a disconnect. Like, how is the balance? Because I sometimes struggle with that. The fact that you're posting all this good stuff, but you're also still posting on social media. It's like, watch these videos, but then go live life as well. It's that balance.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me with that is the approach that I try to take on it was, now that I was going down that mental health route, and when I thought about it initially is, like I said, we internalize everything. And these days, because we're so disconnected from everything else, we go and lock ourselves in that room, like I said before, and we get on our phones and we just scroll. And I was like, if I can make these mean more by people seeing them when they need to see them for the right reasons, then if it's on social media, it's on social media. Like, but at the same time, the more it grows on social media, the more people are aware of what I do and will go out of their comfort zone to come and sit down and that kind of stuff. So I just think, approaching it the way that I did is, it's just like, we internalize things, right, we're on our phones. So if someone can doom scroll and then see a video that relates exactly to their situation, that might bring them out of that situation. Then in turn, they might go outside, have a human interaction and get back to the things that make them happy, which can bring them out of this depression hole or whatever they're going through that's really, on another level, disconnecting them from the world as well. So it was trying to pull them back in through social media to get off social media to go back to what makes them happy, if that makes sense.
What's your like long-term direction with it? Like, where do you want it to go, and how do you want it to go that way?
Yeah, we're literally planning all this out as we speak, which is pretty cool. So obviously, I think I'd been doing it for 2-3 weeks before it took off. Like, it was crazy. Like, and I wasn't expecting that at all. And a little funny story there is, the video that I posted that went viral, it got a lot of attention to the page, was one that I think I edited in about a minute and thought nothing of because it didn't relate to my situation. But I posted it just because I tried to post like once or twice a day, and I was just like, I just need to get something out. Like, I've got nothing edited, quick edit, put it in, chuck it up, left it, went and did my things. Came back and it was like over 20,000 people had followed it from the one reel, and then and it had reached over like 2 million accounts or something stupid like, and I was just like, to me, that's the beauty of it. It's something that didn't relate to me, and I just thought was like, probably not one of the more powerful things I'd heard on the, what I do, but to everyone else out there, it was so relatable, which is just a crazy thing. But to me, I think there's so many directions that we can go with it now that it certainly didn't start as like a mental health beacon. I didn't know where it was going to go or what it would turn into. Kind of that was the beauty of doing something unique and that was different. But, I want to be able to travel with it and listen to people's stories. I get so many DMs from people that are just like, come to Perth, come to WA, come to South Australia and Victoria. Like, I wish someone could do that for me or hold that space. Like, there's obviously this big need for it everywhere. Like, people just need to be heard. So in some aspect, I want to be able to do that. And then, whether it's in-person events where we're just creating community and getting around it, it's honestly endless, but just be able to create content that gives value and helps people, but stay authentic and real and just do these little things that mean so much to people, I think. But it's untapped what we're doing, but there's so much direction that we're building at the minute, and it's just trying to stay true to why we did it and the direction that we want to do it. So being transparent to the fact that no matter how big it gets or where we go with it, I can still pull up with my signs to a park bench and have a chat to someone and make their day and make a difference, I guess.
I've always loved that idea of being able to travel and interview people, because there's one thing about creating a studio and being in a box that it's good because obviously you get high quality, blah, 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 all that stuff, but you get stuck in a box and people have got to come to you. And I love the idea of just being the other side of the world, somewhere remote with just, like you say, an iPhone or a camera and just chatting to some random person that might have the most impactful story you've ever heard. And it's just to actually get to those people, because it's there's so many people in the world that wouldn't ever be close enough to a studio that have actually the coolest, most unique stories. So it's I've always been go to them, find them, because I think that's where the really good, juicy stuff is that you can get out of life. So I love that. I think that's really, really cool. Do you find, do you ever get worried about it getting to a point where people would start coming to you deliberately to try and almost share something? It would become not so random if you got to a point where it was you could kind of tell that people, because I saw you put up a thing I'm going down to the beach now, and if just say random people come that you kind of knew were had a bit more of an angle to share with that, how would you feel about that?
Basically it's what happened yesterday. So I had a guy that was messaged me on the page and really loved the content and wanted to talk, and that's who came down yesterday. And to me, it doesn't really take away the authentic value from it. It's just identifying that, all right, he's comfortable with what's on the page. It relates to him. He knows what I'm about and what I'm doing with the page, and he really needs to talk. And so if I can hold a space for that, then that's great. It obviously does take a little bit away from it, but it's hard to hit. It's really random. Some days I'll go down there and not talk to anyone, because no one will stop. It's that fear of judgment back on them to sit down, and there's heaps of people walking past, so people can hear what you're saying and all these different things. But yeah, I'm quite happy with it and content with it at the minute, because it's turning this mental health beacon where these people that are identifying that they need to chat and they need to speak and they've got stuff they need to talk about, and they think that they've been through stuff that can provide value to other people, and that's the reason I started. So if they would, they want to set up a time that they, hey, you're going to be down there tomorrow, and I'm like, yep, and they come down, then it's just that's fine. I don't know the person, they're still a stranger. Yeah. They've messaged the page, yep, they've identified that they need it, and they know how I approach the way I go about it, but we're essentially still strangers. I've never met them in person, never seen them before, don't know anything about their story. So the whole thing's essentially still the same. It's just, I think it's the beauty of the page growing is they've seen it and they've been happy with it, and they've gone, I need this space, and then I'm happy to fill that space, obviously.
Yeah. How's it been mentally for you dealing with, because you are helping people, but then you're getting these messages that would be quite full on at times. How's that been mentally dealing with that and having to give people responses that obviously are in a dark place?
Yeah, I think I keep it pretty chill, and I message everyone back that sends me a DM, and I try and be there as much as I can. But it's also identifying the fact and saying fact to the truth that I'm not a professional, and that's not what it's about, and that's not what I am. I can provide details to give people to see a professional, but I can only give, unprofessional advice and just my own, advice and how I've lived life. So it does get to the point where I get some DMs and I'm just I don't know how to approach that. But at the end of the day, for me, it's just about being human. If someone's reaching out, they're going through something really shit, and I never want to get to the point where someone reaches out and I leave their DM unopened and then they end up, committing suicide or something happens because I was their last line of hope that they related to a video, and then I got too caught up in my own shit to reply and just say something. So even if it's something as small as just saying, I love you, I believe in you, I'm proud of you, you're doing amazing, keep it up. I try and stick along that trend and just be consistent with that. And then if people try and go deeper, it's kind of hey, I'm not a professional, happy to talk and be there whenever you need it. I'm just a DM away. But if you need to see someone, see someone. But I can only provide what I can provide and make that clear. But like I said, I just try and tell them I love them, that they're thought of, that they're valued, that, their time here on earth is valued, and they don't need to, go anywhere with it. But it can be tough. I mean, the hardest thing for me mentally is the direction that it's gone. Is I kind of feel like a fraud myself sometimes when I'm having my own mental issues. Is people see the side of me on social media where I'm happy, I'm listening, I'm talking to people and sharing their experiences, and then sometimes I get home and I've had a shit day and I'm feeling crappy, and maybe I might not have the energy to go down to the beach and film that night, and I feel like a fraud and a letdown to those people because, I'm doing my own shit and I feel like I shouldn't be feeling that way. So it's this fine balance of understanding that I've got to listen to my own advice that I give to other people, and the things that I say about, self-kindness is so huge and so important to just, love yourself and be kind to yourself. And sometimes it's okay that I need to take time to do that myself, and that just because I'm feeling these emotions and I'm human as well doesn't make me a fraud, and that, I need that space and time as well as other people.
Do you ever feel like you want to share that to then again be more relatable? Like that's the hard thing. It's like you're saying you're making these people become really vulnerable, but then you obviously feel the same. It's like when you can be vulnerable at that same time, it's like, oh, okay, like it helps other people. Do you feel like you almost feel like you need to show that as well?
Yeah,
you're in those places.
It's definitely something that's going to start to happen more often, and something that I want to do. It's kind of that catch-22 that I didn't realise the page was going to go viral the way it has so quickly. Like, I wasn't prepared for that, and I didn't have time to plan out. And like, you go in your head, you're like, oh, I want it to blow up, and like these things are more reach, but you don't actually think it's going to happen, especially in a 2-week time frame where you've gone from 200 followers to 35,000. Like, it's just, how does anyone cope with that? Like, or deal with that when you don't have those, that preparation in place? So,
because you're still working full time, and
that's the hardest thing, man. Is like, all I want to do is be, doing this and talking to people and going down there and filming, and I've got to work, an 8-hour job where it's physically demanding, and I come home and the whole time I'm motivated to do it, and I get home and I'm just exhausted. I'm like, it takes so much strength to just get down there. So, for me at the minute, it's just about finding ways to supplement income and finding ways to, I suppose, have the channel supported, whether it's through sponsorships or working with other like-minded brands that their values align and that kind of stuff, to help me be able to take a bit of time off work to put a bit more effort and time into it. But yeah, at the minute, it's just like it's just hectic. Like, mentally, I've been, really, really down, probably because I guess that's the old saying where it's just like the closer you get to something, the less you appreciate where you're at in the moment. And essentially, I'm doing a job that pays well. I work with my best mate. I'm very thankful for it. It's gotten me through a lot of times, and pays my bills, puts a roof over my head. But since the channel's blown up, I've got such a passion for it, and it fills up my cup so much. That's all I want to do. And the fact that I'm stuck doing a job that I really don't enjoy, that doesn't really drive me or fill up my cup, it's like I spend all that time hating work because I want to be somewhere else. And then as soon as I finish work, I've used all that energy on that job, and then I'm exhausted and can't put everything into what I need to there, or, I need to edit videos, and I get home, I'm just like, oh, fuck, I'm just exhausted. So at the minute, it's just trying to find a balance and trying to find ways to supplement things so I can put a bit more time into it, because, it's pretty crazy trying to do all that on top of working, a physical labour job that you work in 40, 50 hours a week. So
you just got to be present with it all, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how you're like, I just want to be there, I want to be there, I want to be in the next section, next part of my life. And it's like, you're going to miss all the good bits. I remember when I was like getting into racing, and I had to go to school every day, and then I'd catch my bus past my house. So I'd wake up in the dark, catch a bus, go to school, catch my bus past where I lived, went to the gym, trained, got home dark. And I remember hating it because I was like, all I wanted to do was race. I was so done with school, and I just felt like, I feel like, when you really like look back and you go, it was actually such a good part of my life, and all I wanted to do was get further ahead. I wanted to just be out of there. And then you look back and like you do anything to go back to those moments and that struggle and that hardship and those nights when I remember walking in the dark back to this bus stop and stuff. But then I look back at it and I was like, oh man, I'd go back there in a heartbeat. Like you say, in the moment, you just want to be at the next stage, but like the next stage will always come, and it's like so cliche, but it's like enjoy the process, because you'll look back and go, man, that was the funnest time. Because I'm even just say when it keeps going the way it's going, and then that is your main focus, and then I'm sure there'll be days where you're just like, oh, now this is like my full-time job, and obviously you still enjoy it some days, but other days you'd be like, oh, I kind of missed working the old job when you're just doing something simple and you have to worry about all these other things. It's like the whole idea, what is it, another level, another devil. So there's always something that's going to kind of worry you, but I think it's just being like centered enough to go, just enjoy the process. It's all going to be fine. We're going to get to where we need to go, be around the right people, do the right things.
I think that's the beauty of hindsight though, isn't it? It's just like the biggest thing I've learned is perspective. And I'd say to everyone, it's just like, you know, one thing that I'm looking at now is I just broke my finger literally on Saturday, which is crazy, but it's just like I've been so overworked lately and mentally struggling to balance this whole situation out. It's been raining, so I haven't had, I can't go get content when it's raining. So I ran out of content, and then I'm stressing because I can't get down there. Work's been hectic. Mentally, I'm all over the place. And then to me, it's like the universe's way of going, hey, here's a bit of time off from work. Now you can put into that. And it's just kind of thing. It's just like one door closes, another one opens, whether it's in a relationship, it's in life, whatever it is. It's just like hindsight and perspective are so powerful, where the fact is, as long as you can see the perspective that, all right, this is going to be shit. Like, I've enjoyed footy so much this year, and we're going well, and, finals is coming up soon, and there's a good chance I won't play in it now. But it's just like, all right, I can play next year. I can kick more goals next year. I can enjoy myself next year. But what is this opportunity opening up for me right now? And internally, all I want to be doing is this, this channel and this page, and putting more time into that, which I haven't had because of work and football and the demanding life that I've got going on at the minute. And it's just gone, all right, universe has gone, take a breather. Here's a couple of weeks off, or whatever it may entail. Now you can put that time and energy into what you need. And it's just that perspective on things. And it's no matter what, like, people's situations and how beautiful they look at things, is they've been through so much shit and so many dark times and that kind of stuff, but they still find hope in perspective and looking at things differently, and your perspective's different to mine. And I think that's the beauty of sharing these stories and these perspectives from other people, is you can take so much value from other people's interactions, their reactions to situations, how they dealt with it, and ultimately they can share their hindsight, which is the most important thing we get, because we can look at a situation after we've been through it and go, oh, I did make it through it, and I did get better, and, all these different things. But until we've got that hindsight, we don't know. So if we can learn from someone else that's been through a similar situation, that's dealt with that, all those issues, and then hear their hindsight, we can go, oh, I've still got to experience it for myself, but I know a few things that will help, and I know that I can get through it.
Yeah. What's the biggest thing you think you've learned from doing this?
Definitely perspective. Like I said, that would be the biggest one. But just understand that everyone's got so much shit going on, and everyone's got these deep layers to them, and that struggle with their own issues and going through all these things. And
makes you more patient with people, hey?
Yeah, and other people have said it to me, and it's probably something I've noticed lately too, just like the way I interact and talk to people now compared to when I started it. And it's like you said, it's more sitting back listening and just hearing the situation, feeling it out. And obviously I'm an out there personality, and I'm energetic and that kind of stuff, and usually I just jump in and say the most pointless shit before I needed to say anything, and then you're like, oh fuck, like, what did I do that for? And then that kind of stuff, where now I kind of just sit back and I just, like, you let people speak, and you hear the full, the scope of the situation, and read the room before you talk, and then you add your 2 cents or whatever you want to say. And that's kind of probably the biggest thing I've learned, is just everyone's going through their own things, and people want to say things and talk and be heard and all this kind of stuff. But just the way that you interact as human beings with people, being a bit more patient, being more understanding that they're going through shit, and that their reaction to you or their outlash is not because of you, and that kind of stuff. Like, all these things that we overthink and we, don't know how to deal with. Now it's kind of just like, oh, you just let it simmer for a little bit, and then you know how to approach that situation a bit better than I used to, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a good tool to have. Even when I was talking to you before, like, it's funny when I talk to people that don't normally go on a podcast, and they always kind of like jump in on things and they don't let you finish, and it's hard to get a flow going with the conversation because you don't let the person actually share what they wanted to share. And eventually you just kind of give up, and you're just like, okay, you can talk then, I'll just let this go. And it makes it really hard when obviously not on a podcast, but just in day-to-day life. If you've got someone that always cuts you off or jumps in, they don't feel like your opinion's the same value as theirs. So then you just stop sharing their opinion. And I feel like that's when you separate from people, because you're like, well, you're not actually listening to what I've got to say. You're just waiting to speak, and it's kind of ruining the relationship. But yeah, the whole idea, I always tell people, like, do a podcast with your friend, even if it's just a microphone, and listen back to it. And you'll probably be like, fuck, I'd say this stupid shit, or I'd cut you off, or whatever it may be. Like, it's a direct reflection of how you interact with people.
Yeah, and we all want to jump in, like you said, too early, and you just, like, even in this situation, it's easy to just get caught up in what you're thinking about, what you want to say next, because obviously the cameras are rolling and you're talking to someone. You don't want to sit there and just be like, oh, I don't know what to say, or I need to think of it quickly. But the more you listen and the more you take from someone else, is more value and the more things that you can put into what you're going to say. So it's just that beautiful thing of reading the room and just knowing when to talk. And like you said, jumping in just cuts off someone else and makes them not feel valid. And that's the beauty about what I've learned from, talking to these strangers, is if I jump in and cut off, they feel like their story's invalid, or I don't really care, I'm just doing it because I want to share it on social media or get likes from it. Like, I'll sit there for the full hour and not say a thing if they need to talk. Like, if that's the way they want to approach a situation. And that's, I just think it's such a powerful skill that everyone needs to probably look at, because we're all creatures of habit with it, that we're all, a lot of us, we're all selfish in a way. Like, we want to, all of it, we want it to be about me and what it's going to do for me and the impact it has on me, all this kind of stuff. And the more you can listen with your ears and talk less with your mouth, the better you're going to get. And I still remember that was one of the first things that his name was John. He came and sat down and he spoke about, and he was just like, the interactions you have with others are the most important things you have. Like, a journey shared with 1,000 people is better than a journey shared alone. I mean, no, sorry, I take that back. A journey shared is 1,000 times better than a journey alone. And that's that whole thing about, if you can just share these experiences and these interactions with people, the more pure and the more, beautiful your life's going to be. And then he started that by saying the best advice he would ever give was that just use your ears and not your mouth, because you'll take so much more from situations and from people, and you won't be taking from them, you'll be giving as well. Like, you're allowing them that place to be heard, to speak and say what they need to say, to feel valued and feel like their opinion and what they're saying matters. And then by listening, you gain more about that situation and a better understanding of how to put yourself into that situation or what to say.
Yeah, just shut up and listen.
Literally.
A little bit here and there. One of the questions similar to this is, you always ask people what's the hardest thing they've gone through emotionally. So I want to flip it and ask you, what's the hardest thing you've gone through emotionally?
Yeah, see, I always relate it back to the fear of death, because it's something I struggle with a lot. And I've been very fortunate enough to have not lost anyone close to me, in a sense. Like, my grandma's partner passed away 3 years ago from melanoma. And this is a thing that I don't know if other people will relate with. They might, which is the beauty of sharing it. But I feel guilty in a sense of almost that I wasn't upset when he passed, like, because there was no emotional connection there. So he was my grandma's partner, and he'd always been around and always had interaction with him, saw grandma so much. Like, she's an absolute rock of our family and I love it to bits. But because there was no emotional connection in the old school style that Philip was, and even my pop, he's about to pass away shortly as well. He's got terminal bladder cancer, and they're not sure how long he'll live. But I struggle internally with dealing, it all comes back to, I suppose, that death, but I don't know how to process not feeling guilty or not feeling upset when someone dies that I don't have an emotional connection with. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but it's just like, I don't know how to entail it, because then I'll have, one of the tough things I dealt with was through the state programs with football and stuff. We had this guy who was way up in the police. He was like a police commissioner or something down Tassie, but he looked after one of the boys that came to training, and he was the happiest out there, like, funniest bloke I've ever met. And he was someone I looked up to, and he was someone that I just loved going to training because I knew he was going to be there and he'd get involved, and he was just the best person ever. And on the flip side of that, he committed suicide. And as a 17, 18-year-old, I had no idea how to process that someone that happy and that someone that gave so much to others was battling so much with their own demons that they took their own life. And I remember, it's fucking making me emotional talking about it now, but I remember sitting at home for, nights on end when no one else there, just crying in a beanbag, not being able to understand why I'll never get to have an interaction with him again. And the fact that he gave me so much joy to just interact with him and be as a person, for that to just go away, and just like I saw him 2 days ago, and he was happy. He was making me laugh like I've never laughed so much in my life. And now we're all getting this phone call and text from the coaches saying, Paul's committed suicide, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, how and why? And like, you don't know how to accept it. And yeah, it's something that still I always think about, and I've still got his number in my phone, and I still call it, and I still hear his name, like when he talks on the phone, and even just scrolling through my contacts and seeing it, I just think back to how positive an impact he had on me as a young man who probably didn't know who he was and what he was doing in life and who he was as a person, and the impact he had on me was just phenomenal. But I still struggle with the fact that, we often hear about these people that are the happiest, kindest, outgoing, give the most to other people, but battle the biggest demons inside and end up taking their lives. And that's something that, has always knocked me around, and I still find hard to accept that he was that person for me, and someone that I looked up to, and someone that I cherished so much, that he was battling so much that we never even asked. We never even said, hey, you doing all right? We just thought he was always amazing because how amazing he made us feel. Yet he was in such a bad way that he took his own life.
Mm. It's crazy, the spectrum of emotions. Like, I always think about this because I know so many people, and I guess I've been that person at points in my life where it's to feel so happy and be so ecstatic and so lively. It's like you feel these emotions, but it's like the pendulum can swing back, and it's like, is it better to feel that good but know that you can also feel that bad? And I think that comes along with how you feel emotionally, but also like with love. It's like, if you really love someone, like, they can rip your heart out, and it's like, is it better to feel that love or be numb or not feel any of it? And it's hard because it's like you hide behind a smile, you hide behind a laugh, you hide behind all these things, and people don't know. People really don't know. And I guess we're coming back before how you're talking about like you going through stuff and whether it's better to be vulnerable with that, because then people can help and they can see it. It's like when you hide behind these things, it's like no one understands that you're hurting because they don't see it at all. And I heard so many cases where it's like people like, oh, no one was there. And it's like, no one knew. It's like you can hide behind so many things and distract people with different things that you do or say or be. And it's like, whether it's drugs, alcohol, girls, like anything, it's like you can hide, and then eventually it can all become too much, and then you just want to check out. But yeah, I can fully relate to the person that is happy on the outside and just dying and dead on the inside. And it's like, how do you get that across? And I think it's just being open and honest with people around you to tell them how you actually feel. Otherwise, they won't know. It's like we're playing this guessing game all the time where people assume that people know how they feel or what they want to do. And it's like, just be honest, man. No matter what that, in what context that may be. If it's like you're straight up and honest, like, you will feel so much freer and happier for doing that. And people actually understand how to help you or not help you or listen or talk or whatever it may be. It's like, if you go up to your friend, it's like, I need you to listen to something I'm going through. It's like, okay, I can do that. But if you're just, again, hiding behind a smile or a laugh, whatever, no one's going to know what to do. Yeah, it's heavy. I know too many people have been in that same situation where they go and you're just like, that's the last thing I saw coming. And I guess it makes you question how you could have showed up differently. But it's like, if you don't know, you don't know. And it's like, you can't check in with every single person you've ever known because of that. It's like, if you're going through that, you need to be the one to voice it. Like, people can't see sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it goes back to the happiest and out there people probably carry the most weight. a lot of the time, and that's something that is hard because we check in on those people that are quiet and that we, that don't talk or seem really down. But it's this misconception that everyone that's out there and happy and giving so much of themselves to other people are internally happy. And we probably don't check in on those people because our interaction with them is them making us feel good and making our world better. But in a part of that, it kind of, they're selling each part of themselves. Like they're taking a little bit more of themselves and giving it to other people, and they're taking that self-love and that time and care for themselves away because they just want to be that person for other people and they want to give to other people. And it's a hard thing to fathom because, like I said, you check in on the people that are quiet and that don't see themselves and that kind of stuff, and then these people that the complete opposite, we go, they're fine, like they're just themselves, or they're just quiet and that kind of stuff. And it's kind of similar, but like I went to a friend's place the other night for dinner, and there's 3 of them that live there, and what they do is they we've got this habit of, I suppose, just a simple interaction like, how was your day? And we go, yeah, it was all right. And we kind of move on from the fact. And they're kind of activity, I suppose, which is great. And I loved it because I got to participate in it. But they go through literally step by step their whole day. It was like what they did when they woke up, what they ate for breakfast, every step-by-step guide map through the whole day, and just talking about your whole day and your whole experience and actually saying stuff that went on helps you identify things, but then talk about things properly. And I think you can put the same things into effect with mental health and that kind of stuff, where when you say someone, how are you? And they just go, oh, I'm okay. And then you kind of dismiss the fact and you just go, they're okay. And then you move on to the next person or the next situation, or you don't actually go deep. And unless you're actually talking about it, a lot of the time we want to talk about it and we've got these feelings that we need to voice and we actually wouldn't mind talking to that person. But like I said, when you just move on from the fact, it's like when we talk, like you said before, if you just butt in and say it, then it just gets, you can't dismiss it, and then you move on to the next thing, and then it's too late to go back to it. And you just go, oh, that's all right, I won't say it, or I can't finish what I was saying. And I think the beauty about what they were doing is they got that whole situation, and you felt, I did it all, because I initially started that way. I said, yeah, it was all right, nothing exciting, just another day. And they all did it, and they're like, come back to me, and they're like, now your day again. And then I went through my whole day, and I was like, I actually feel better for saying that, and that was actually enjoyable, and it got me out of my shell and happier and talking. And I think it's a common practice that we can probably put into place. It's easier when we're talking to a friend or something and saying, are you okay? If they do dismiss the fact, maybe find it in yourself to go, right, maybe I'm not, like, when you're talking to them, say, hey, I'm not okay either, like, or this is how I'm feeling. And if you go a bit deeper, then they go, oh shit, they actually care, or they want to hear it, and then they go deeper, and then, that 5-minute chat that you had might, stop someone from going home and, feeling really shitty about their situation, and one thing lead to another, like just taking that time to, I suppose, understand the situation or hear a bit deeper than these days. Just go, yeah, I'm fine, or that's okay, or yeah, good, and then dismiss it and move on. Like, there's so much more deeper there that, like I said, subconsciously we want to talk about anyway, but in our interactions that are so brief and shallow these days as humans, because of the world that we live in, and phones and technology and everything, and we kind of just dismiss it, move on, and then we dismiss our own feelings as invalid and that kind of stuff. We don't talk about it, and then we go home and internalize it and deal with it ourselves and struggle with it. Whereas if we just allowed that space to share and to have that 5 minutes to go, I'm not okay, this is how I feel, work's hectic at the minute, this is taking up so much time, I can't get down to the beach to film, like I'm feeling shit, like I feel like guilty. And then you go, oh, I feel better just for saying that. Like, it's simple as it is, and a simple exercise, it can make a huge difference rather than just dismissing the fact.
Yeah, and then your friend go, oh, but if you tried this, or have you done that? And you go, oh, no, I haven't. And then it's, whether they give you advice or not or help you out in any way, like you said, just getting it out's a benefit in itself. But most of the time they can probably give you a tool that will help you anyway. And you're like, oh, that was amazing. Yeah, I think it's like anyone listening to this right now, it's like just whenever you are listening to this, whether it's morning, night, or whatever, maybe the next day, just try and talk to a friend on a deeper level than you would normally. Like ask them how they're going, really going. Like what's the most exciting thing in their life? What's the worst thing in their life? Whatever questions it may be, and like just dive that bit deeper and just see where it goes. Like it's probably going to end up being a lot better than if you just go, oh, it's fine. And then, like you said, go off on your phone or scroll or do whatever it is. It's like, no, just dive into how someone is actually going. And then they probably ask you how you're going. It'll be like beneficial.
Yeah, and I think it's small things too. It's like you don't have to dive in and go, oh, how are you mentally feeling today?
Yeah.
Like you're not just jumping straight at it and going like, are you like? It's just like going, like because as humans and how we do things, we like especially these days, like we say, we dismiss things quite easily and we'll just skim the surface. And the things I do with my questions too and stuff that I talk to people is you just give them prompts and ways to lead them down the path that they need to say what they need to say. So whether you're talking to a friend, you might think to yourself, oh, I don't know how to talk to this person or actually get how they're feeling. Like, do I just say, oh, are you mentally okay? Or like, do you have depression? Like, it's not the way to go about it. And it's just, they're going to dismiss that more. But if you can just talk to them about life or just little things and how's home, how's family, how's work, these things, and then kind of like steer the questions in a different direction, then just get a little bit deeper each time, then they'll go, oh, say the things they need to say. And I think that's kind of important. And that's something that, like you said, just takes a little bit of time. So if it's important to, I mean, we'd much rather take 10 minutes out of our day to not get on our phone that makes, a lifetime of difference to someone else.
No, I see that, man. I was going to ask you, we'll wrap it up in a second. I was going to ask you if you could go back and change something that you have done or teach yourself a lesson going forward, what would be the lesson you would try and teach yourself?
Yeah. So this is one I love because I've taken so much benefit out of it is probably I'd forgive myself and give the advice for I probably lowered my self-worth a lot giving myself to other people and the things I expected of other people. I guess as an out there person that I am is a very high energy, and I would in some situations start a bit shy, but then I'd authentically be myself and let that show. And then that would rub someone up the wrong way, or someone wouldn't appreciate it, or they're having a shit day themselves. So they lash out at me being myself and being content and happy. And then I would go back into my shell and think, I can't be myself. And then I hide away the true person that Blair is. And I think if you can understand that if you authentically be yourself and the person you are, it doesn't matter at all, because there's always going to be people that disagree and it rubs them up the wrong way. And 99% of the time, that's not going to be on you. That's because they're going through their own shit, and you being happy and content makes them angry because they're not in their situation or they're dealing with their own things. And if you can understand that 95% of your interactions, if you're authentically yourself, the right people will stay around you for the right reasons, and that'll make you happier than 10 people that stay around you for the right reasons that make you your true self are better than trying to please 100 people that really don't know you or are seeing that, side of you. And I think it goes back to, I suppose, high school for me and that kind of stuff is, as teenagers and as young children and kids and stuff, is we don't have an identity. We don't know who we are. It's this constant battle of trying to fit in and trying to find out who we are. And because of high school and school situations is, you've got all these groups of people, the cool kids and the soccer boys and whatever it is. And we all try and fit in and change who we are to blend into other situations. So we're perceived as cooler or someone else that we aren't just for that situation. And I think it's such a powerful thing that you can learn that if you can be authentically yourself, the right people will stay around you for the right reasons. And that's all you ever need. And you'll be so happy because of that. Because if you're putting up essentially a mask to fit into other people, it might feel good to be there for 5 minutes and you're like, oh yeah, I'm with the cool kids, or, I'm doing something that you think is cool in the moment. Unless it's authentically you, it's not right for you, and it won't fill up your cup and make you happy long term. So if you can hold on to what makes you you and what makes the people closest to you love you the most, and even if it's talking to them and going, what do you love about me, or what makes me me, and they tell you and you go, identify that and go, all right, that's what makes Blair Blair. And at the end of the day, deep down, what makes you you. And when you're with the people you're most comfortable with, you're yourself and you're happy and you're out there and you don't care what anyone else thinks. And if you can hold on to those things that make you you, and understand that other people aren't always going to agree with that, and that's okay. That's not on you, because the right people will stay around you for the right reasons. And I think that's something that I didn't understand for a long time, and I lowered my self-worth, and I gave a lot more of me to other people and tried to blend in and fit into their situations based off what I perceived as cool, or what they were, the way they were living their life. And essentially, people that put up these masks to try and be cool or be unauthentic might be seemed cool in that situation, but they're dealing with their own things and their own identity crisis, and struggling to figure out what they want to do with their life, or who they are as a person, or it might be an unstable home situation, whatever it may be. In that, if you can just stay true to who you are and be you, that the right people will stay around you, and that'll make you the most content and happy, whether it's 5 people, it's 500 people, or it's one person or 2. Like, those people that make you are the ones you want to keep around. And that's, the biggest thing I would teach myself or tell myself.
Love that. It's good. Last one, we'll finish it off. How do you want to be remembered?
See, this one, a lot of people, this one hits me pretty hard, because obviously the fear I have around the death and the stuff that I'm trying to scope out and figure out myself. But for me, it's just been remembered as someone that was authentic and real and had a positive impact on others. And I'm trying to align the values and things that mean with me with a business and with a platform that can hit the most people in the right way. So then, obviously, like I said, that fills up my cup. So the more interactions and human experiences I can have with others in a positive way, I don't necessarily want to be known by the whole world and be like, oh, like a household name. Like, that's bullshit. Like, I really don't care about that. But if the people that knew me best and knew the authentic version of me, knew me and said the things that were true to me and relayed that on, then I'd be happy. And obviously, one of the things I'm really excited for in life is to be a father. Like, I think that's one of the coolest things ever. It's scary because of the time that we live in, but I think it's just such a beautiful thing that you can have someone, raise someone and bring them into a world, and they could change the world, or they could, the possibilities are endless, and you can just put your authenticness and your values into someone, and they grow and be their own person and take bits of you. And obviously you want to leave parts of your soul and parts of the person you were into your children, that they make the world a better place. But essentially just having a positive impact on as many people as I can, and being remembered the fact that I was authentic to who I am and what makes me happy, and I spread kindness and joy and love across the world in every people that I meet.
Love that. I love it. What have you got? What's your plan now? What's your goal now? Is to try and pump this page up, get that as your full-time gig, leave work, and then just focus on doing that? That's the goal now?
Yep, absolutely. That's the goal. And I think everything ties in back to what makes us. And for me, I also, wanting to make my time as much as I can on this earth, is I want to see, every corner of the globe. I want to travel to every country and experience cultures and the way they do things, and just know that I had the most fulfilled experience here on earth. So, and I think that's the beauty of growing this, is hopefully this can take me and the team that I end up building around me just to endless places around the world, and we can experience and we can learn and just see others, and then obviously in the end have an impact on others. So the bigger the platform grows, the more impact we can have on people out there. And for me, money is a good thing. You want to be comfortable in yourself. You want to be able to provide for your kids when you have them. And essentially for me, growing up, I was always living paycheck to paycheck because of football. I was always doing these shitty jobs because I thought my passion was to get drafted and play AFL and do these things. And I think that living paycheck to paycheck, you realise the amount of stress that it puts on, it's not in the budget this week. I can't go out and hang with my friends, or they're all going out for dinner, but I've got to stay at home because I can't afford it this week, kind of thing. So there's that motivation in wanting to be secure in the fact that you can go buy stuff that makes you happy and content and not have to worry about how much it costs. We all want that goal ultimately. But to me, money is a tool to do more good. So the more money the page makes, the more it does, is the more avenues we can explore as a team to go, hey, these are the resources that we can put into place that are going to ultimately help someone that needs it a lot more than I do. $1 million Ferrari is not going to do it for me. It just doesn't appeal. Obviously, later down the track, I might like an old school muscle car, and that might make me content and happy, and I might, spend a bit of money on that. But in the most part, it's like it's a tool to do more good. So the bigger the platform grows, is more of an opportunity to impact others positively, and then look at ways that we can start our own foundations and our own charities and different ways of giving back to the people that really need it, and really stay transparent to the fact of why I started it and the impact that it had at the start. Because it's that good old saying is, no matter how far you get in life and where you end up, always remember where you came from. And it's that beautiful thing that I hope and I know that I'll do is, no matter how big it gets, I'll still have a sign, I'll go sit down and I'll still have a chat with someone. And that's what started it all, and that's a way to ground yourself and understand that no matter how big it gets, that's where it all started, and that's where that value initially came from that helped you get in the position that you are now. So don't lose sight of what was important and what gave the most value in the beginning.
Yeah, no, I love that. All right, bro. Well, thank you for jumping on the pod. I'll put all the links and stuff for the page in the show notes, but no, I really appreciated you coming on and chatting about it, and I love what you're doing. I think it's epic.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. So first podcast out of the way, I was a bit nervous, so I didn't know how it would go. But no, it's good just to sit with someone like yourself that's authentic, and you can just have that chat and there's no pressure, and we just voice our opinions and the way that we feel in our interactions. And ultimately, this is a human experience, which is so important to me. And obviously, we're all going to take value out of these experiences we have with others. So I can't thank you enough for having me on here.
I'm sure it's not the last one either. Sure
Hopefully not. That'd be
get
good.
it going. It is funny though, hey, like when you become so comfortable in your little, what would you call, role in interviewing other people, and then you get it flipped around and it changes the perception or perspective of how to show up. And I think so many people, they get comfortable in their way of doing something that they don't actually consciously think about how the other person would react. And I guess this will probably help you in interviewing other people, because you feel that way, like you've been in that position now, even though you kind of feel it, and then you're like, oh shit, like this is what it feels like to kind of have it all flipped on you. Yeah,
well, it's just that beautiful thing of just perspective, like we go back to. And I just love where the name ended up, and just through strangers' eyes. It's just like you're essentially me right now in what I do, and I'm having to react and talk about things in a way that I would ask someone else to. So, like you said, it helps me see things that I wouldn't normally see and be on the flip side of things. But that's perspective on the beauty of it, and it'll provide me heaps of value going forward, I'm sure.
Nah, sick dude. Well, cheers for this. I really appreciated it.
All right,
bro. Wrap it up.
Let's do it, eh?